Madison had always believed that New York would swallow her whole. The city was too big, too loud, too indifferent to care about one girl from Nebraska with a marketing degree and a dream. But on her second day at Sterling and Associates, she walked into the corner office on the 42nd floor, and suddenly the city didn't feel quite so empty anymore. His name was Alexander Voss, 42, impeccably tailored, with dark eyes that seemed to calculate everything in milliseconds. He was the kind of man who made grown adults nervous, the kind who built empires before breakfast and destroyed competitors. With a single email, Madison had seen his photo in Forbes. She had not expected him to notice her, but he did. "You're the new junior strategist," he said, not looking up from his desk. His voice was low, controlled, the kind of voice that made people listen. "Yes, sir," Madison replied, her voice steadier than she felt. He finally looked at her. Really looked at her. His gaze traveled slowly from her face to her shoes and back again, and Madison felt her skin warm under the weight of his attention. "What's your name?" "Madison." "Madison Clark." "Madison Clark," he repeated, as if tasting the name. "You'll work directly with me. I don't tolerate mediocrity, and I certainly don't tolerate mistakes." "Understood. Understood," she whispered. The first month was torture. Alexander was exacting, demanding, sometimes brutal in his critiques. He would call her into his office at odd hours, reviewing her work with an intensity that made it impossible to think clearly when he was near. His cologne, something dark and expensive, would linger in her apartment long after she left the building. She found herself replaying conversations, analyzing his words, searching for hidden meanings that probably weren't there. She told herself it was professional admiration. She was lying. One evening, 3 months in, the office was empty except for them. A major campaign had launched that day, and the numbers were exceeding expectations. Alexander had called her in to review the metrics, but something felt different. The air between them was charged, electric. "You did well," he said, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the glittering Manhattan skyline. "Better than well. You exceeded my expectations. Thank you, Mr. Voss." "Alexander," he corrected, turning to face her. "When we're alone, you call me Alexander." Her heart was hammering against her ribs. "Alexander." He stepped closer, and Madison's breath caught. She could see the shadow of stubble on his jaw, the intensity in his eyes that she had come to both fear and crave. "Do you know why I hired you?" he asked quietly. Madison shook her head. "Because the moment you walked into my office, I knew you were dangerous. Not to the company. To me." His hand reached up, his fingers brushing a strand of hair away from her face. "And I've spent the last 3 months trying to prove that I could maintain professional boundaries. That I could be your mentor, your boss, nothing more. And," Madison breathed. "And I've failed," he whispered, and then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was everything she had imagined, demanding, possessive, the kind of kiss that erased every rational thought from her mind. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer, and Madison's fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "This is a terrible idea," Alexander said, but his hands didn't release her. "The worst," Madison agreed and kissed him again. What followed was a careful dance of stolen moments and secret glances, closed doors. His hand finding hers in conference rooms, text messages that made her pulse race. Late nights reviewing strategy that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with the way he made her feel seen. Wanted, consumed. Alexander was exacting in the boardroom and absolutely devastating in private. He knew exactly how to touch her to make her tremble, what words would make her surrender completely. There was a darkness to him, a controlled intensity that thrilled and terrified her in equal measure. "You're mine," he would whisper against her skin. "Say it." "I'm yours," she would answer, and mean it with every fiber of her being. But as weeks turned into months, Madison found herself caught between two worlds. The professional Madison who had to maintain composure in meetings, pretending that she felt nothing when Alexander was near. And the private Madison who belonged completely to him, who would do anything he asked. The risk was intoxicating. The potential consequences, her career, his reputation, the scandal that would follow, if anyone discovered the truth, only made it more thrilling. One night, after a gala where they had barely been able to keep their hands off each other, Alexander pulled her into his penthouse apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city, and Madison felt small, insignificant, utterly consumed by him. "I want more," he said, backing her against the glass. "More than stolen moments. More than this." Madison's breath hitched. "What do you mean?" "I want you to move in with me. I want to wake up next to you. I want—" He paused, and for the first time, Madison saw something vulnerable flicker across his features. "I want you to stay." She had come to New York to find herself. Instead, she had found him. And she was terrified that losing him would mean losing everything. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll stay." As he kissed her, Madison looked out at the glittering city below, the city that had seemed so vast and indifferent just months ago. Now it felt like theirs. A kingdom where they could hide away from the world, where the only rules were the ones they made together. She had no idea what would come next. But in Alexander's arms, with the city glowing beneath them like a promise, Madison, Clark finally felt like she had found her place in New York. Even if it was the most dangerous place she could possibly be, she felt safe, but was it real?